Welcome to today's program, USPTO Hour, updates on pendency and other patents priorities. I am Sean Hunter, the Director of the Office of Patents Stakeholder Experience here at the United States Patent and Trademark Office. The USPTO recently unveiled 7 patents business unit priorities, which are represented by the acronym INVENTS. Each priority represents the agency's commitment to strengthen the U.S. patent system, enable innovators to secure patent protection for their inventions, and provide durable patent rights that make the United States intellectual property system the best in the world. With that, it is my pleasure to introduce Valencia Martin-Wallace, Acting Commissioner for Patents, and Gregory Trider, Technology Center Director, TC 1700. Valencia Martin-Wallace is the Acting Commissioner for Patents of the United States Patent and Trademark Office. As Acting Commissioner for Patents, Ms. Martin-Wallace manages and leads the Patents Organization as its Chief Operating Officer. She oversees the agency's 10,000 patents employees, including more than 9,000 patents examiners responsible for fostering the country's innovation system by providing patent protections to inventors as stated in Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution. Prior to her acting role, Ms. Martin-Wallace was the Deputy Commissioner for Patents. In that role, she managed and led the Patents Organization's efforts related to international IP harmonization and provided executive oversight over patent examining functions in Technology Centers 2600 and 3700. As part of her 33-year career at the USPTO, she recently served as Deputy Commissioner for Patent Quality, where she was responsible for sustaining the high quality of the USPTO's patent examination processes and products. She also served as Assistant Deputy Commissioner for Patent Operations, where Ms. Martin-Wallace oversaw operations in the Software Technology Centers, served as Executive Co-Lead on the implementation of the AIA First Inventor to File statutory framework, and led the implementation of the Office of Patent Examination Support Services. Ms. Martin-Wallace is a graduate of Howard University, where she earned a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering, and the George Washington University School of Law. She has also received a certificate in advanced public administration from Syracuse University's Maxwell School of Public Administration. Ms. Martin-Wallace was awarded the Presidential Rank Award. Gregory, or Greg Trider, is a Patents Group Director in Technology Center 1700, Chemical and Materials Engineering, who currently oversees the Pendency Oversight Strategy Team, or POST. Mr. Trider joined the USPTO as a patent examiner after receiving a Bachelor of Science degree in Computer Science from Northeastern University and a Juris Doctor from Suffolk University Law School. He examined patent applications in the selective visual display technology area and served as a supervisory patent examiner in the area of computer graphic processing, 3D animation, display color attribute, object processing, hardware, and memory. He also served for several years as a Technology Center Operations Manager and Acting Director in Technology Center 2600. Mr. Trider also spent time as a detail lead with the Office of General Law, or OGL, in 2020, where he performed legal review of performance and conduct actions, advised on bargaining obligations and labor relation issues, and advised on administrative law issues. As a subject matter expert since April of 2018 and current co-lead, Mr. Trider represents patents in his partnership with the Office of Finance Activity-Based Information Division, or ABI team, maintaining and updating the fully burdened expense model for the patent organization. With that, it is my pleasure to turn it over to you, Valencia and Greg.
Great. Thank you so much, Sean, for that warm introduction. And good afternoon, good morning to everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here. I'm really excited to be able to give you an update on our pendency and patents priorities. I had the pleasure of kicking off USPTO Hour and introducing the patents priorities a few months ago, and I'm really excited to be here with Greg to share with you the successes that we've had and where we're going in the future. So I will start by quickly reminding everyone of our patents priorities, of which we have 7, starting with inventory and pendency focused, where we are reducing our unexamined patent applications and the amount of time it takes to examine a patent application, and never sacrificing a thorough review. And our next is new approaches to examination, where we take a look at our functions and our work products and make sure that we are having the most advanced examination aspects that are going to build the best product. Next, value and durability of patents, where we take a look at whether we are meeting our compliance and how to move forward on building a stronger patent grant. Next, we're going to look at engagement and satisfaction for our priorities. Now, our patent employees are the most critical part of this agency. So making sure that we are making them comfortable, giving them all that they need to do the fantastic job that they do is what we are focusing on as well. Now, next level information technology tools, where we are investing time, energy, and money to making sure that we have the most advanced IT and AI tools that are going to help us make the best decisions possible on patent issues, as well as making sure that we're giving the most support to our patent examiners as they're going through the patent examination process. Next is threats. It is our responsibility and our pleasure to root out any inappropriate, fraudulent activity that would threaten the integrity of the patents that we grant. And lastly, simplifying. As we simplify the patent process and make sure that we're streamlining and being efficient as well as effective in all that we do, not only for our stakeholders externally, but our stakeholders, our patent employees internally. So we are going to start with inventory and pendency focus today. So we're going to give you a great look at what we've been doing, why we're doing it. We're going to have 3 topics to discuss today. First is a historical look at our inventory and how we got to where we were and what we've been doing. So those efforts to address our current challenges. And we're also going to share with you some of the things that we're doing to look forward to, not only addressing the challenges of today, but to make sure we're setting ourselves up for success in the future. So Greg, if you could share some of the things that we're doing.
Sure. All right. Thank you, Valencia. So as Valencia mentioned, we're going to start by taking a look at the historical trends of our inventory and how that led us to where we are today. So what you're looking at here is the inventory trend and our inventory levels going back to the start of 2020 and leading all the way until the end of Q3 of this fiscal year. So you can see we have a pretty clear trend going on here where we've been increasing, and that increase was at the tune of about 10,000 applications per quarter between the start of this window and where we are today. You can see, and this is what we'll get to a little bit later, there's a hopeful trend there at the very end on the far right, and we're going to talk about some of what we've done to introduce that. What we're going to be looking at primarily is capacity. So the direction that our inventory goes depends heavily on what our output capacity is. And when we're using that term, we're referring to the difference between the output rate of our workforce and the input rate of new application filings. Anytime that our capacity is less than 100%, that means that our inventory is growing. And on the other side, anytime that we are above 100%, obviously we are improving the levels of our inventory and driving it down. What you're seeing here is the relative capacity view, the difference between our input, our filings, and our output, our first actions, year over year. So you can see pretty clearly indicated here, those periods where that gap is the largest are the same periods where our inventory grew by the largest values. Unfortunately, our capacity has been well below 100% since back to at least fiscal year 2020. So we're going to look at some of the variables that feed into that and then some of the underlying factors. Obviously, our inventory, one large component of that is the filing rate. So one of the places we would look to learn why our inventory is increasing is whether we've observed a large increase in filings. Here, going back to 2020, we're not seeing that. What we see is a fairly stable filing pattern year over year. We have the typical increase somewhere in the neighborhood of 1% to 2%, but nothing dramatic that would explain the sort of increase in inventory that we've seen. Another factor is the size of our workforce. So if we had a sudden loss in workforce, we would expect that our output would go down, and we would see in parallel with that, we'd see an increase in the inventory. We also are not seeing that. So our examiner staffing levels have remained fairly consistent from FY20 through today and leading into FY 2024. A small uptick in 24, but for the most part, this has remained fairly stable all the way through the time period that we're looking at. However, if you look here, it's not as dramatic as one might expect, but our output rates have, in the aggregate, been generally decreasing over time. So that's not the result of our examiners becoming less efficient. They continue to work diligently and work on the applications that we provide to them to examine. But there are underlying factors that can lead to output in the aggregate decreasing. So this is just meant to show that of the main contributing factors, filing, staffing, and output, we can identify that both filings and staffings have remained fairly stable, but our output rate has declined over that period. Some of the causes that we've observed in our reduced output, since we know that filings and staffing have remained fairly stable, are increased application expectancy. So that is the time provided to examiners to examine each application that is in front of them. You can see it sort of as an expectation. I know the term expectancy sometimes sounds as if we're expecting less, but it's actually the expectation of the amount of time that each application takes to examine. The increase in expectancy is often a deliberate choice to make sure that we are making investments in quality or that we are accommodating increases in complexity within a technology. So that type of increase, we understand why that occurs because we have decided to do it. Lower overtime usage is another factor. Over that same time window, we've seen the amount of overtime worked by the average examiner move from around 80 hours, about 78, down to below 40 hours. So that's a significant decrease in the number of extra hours that we're seeing overtime from each examiner. Across that same window, we've seen our award participation decrease. We have two awards primarily that we refer to when we're talking about production, and that's the SAA and the gain share. Participation in both of those awards has been declining over time. Examiner details. So examiner details are career development or other detail offerings or work assignments that examiners, because they're highly skilled and are often in high demand across the office, when support is needed elsewhere, career development details or other details are often how that's achieved. We've seen that increase fairly dramatically over that same window as well. The number of those details and examiners participating in them has nearly doubled over the time frame that we're looking at. Finally, and this isn't meant to be a comprehensive list, but some of the more visible contributing factors is non-production time increase. So non-production time is typically dedicated to activities that are not directed precisely at examination, but there are other activities that examiners engage in throughout their work week. So we've seen that comes from various sources, and we've seen a general increase in the amount of that sort of time over the period from 2020 to 2025. And so to sort of round it out, we took a look at inventory, but that's not the only thing that we look at when it comes to pendency, obviously, nor is it generally the first thing we look at. Here's a view to where we stand right now on first action pendency at about 22.8 months, and for total pendency, about 26.6 months. You can see on the right-hand side is the same window that we've been talking about, 2020 until today, and you can see the trend that that's taken. That's sort of where we stand, and that's meant to just give a little bit of backstory as to where the inventory was and what our pendency values look like at the time that we recognized that we needed to put some activities and initiatives in place to start to turn the tide on the inventory and make some improvements. You'll find that as we talk further, those improvements that we discuss are going to be directed primarily to those areas that were listed on that earlier slide. So how are we going about reversing the inventory trend? We are making sure that we're prioritizing examination activities within patents. So our examiners are highly skilled. What they're best at is examining patent applications and creating those durable patents that Valencia referred to earlier. So one of the things that we're looking to do is identifying and prioritizing those details that are mission critical or essential, and identify those that maybe we can deprioritize for now. Not to say that they don't have value, but they are not as prioritized when we're in a pendency posture as we are now. And so we're looking to reduce some of those. We are prioritizing examiner time spent directly on examination. That refers to the non-production time that I referred to earlier, making sure that those activities that we are introducing into the examiner's workday and those things that we are asking them to do beyond examination of patent applications are prioritized, they have strategic value, and that we're ensuring that we're being conscientious about how we're defining those. We've also temporarily limited some of our training to those high priority topics, quality. We want to make sure that we're not limiting ourselves in any way in terms of training our examiners on topics that are important to quality, but we are identifying other training topics that don't lead directly to patent examination output or quality of examination. We're also optimizing our staffing. So right now, Quick plug is that there are examiner vacancies out there, but we are looking to fill those and staff up in order to meet the demand that we're seeing from filed applications. We're also reassignment or offering the opportunity for reassignment of employees with examination skills back to the patent corps. So as I mentioned, patent examiners are highly skilled workers. They're in high demand not only for production output, but also in other areas of the office for their knowledge of patent process. You can think of our IT areas and some of the tools that Valencia touched upon. When building those tools, the knowledge and experience of a patent examiner is amazingly valuable. But we have offered the opportunity, as we're trying to make these improvements, for those employees to come back and help us with that effort. We're capacity balancing across technologies. So there's disparities from one technology to another in terms of pendency. And that's related to the capacity within those technologies, how many examiners we have working there. So we engage frequently in identifying those areas that have an excess of capacity, meaning that they are at a lower pendency level than the average. And we are moving employees when we can in the ways that ensure quality, that there are gaps that we do not cross when it comes to moving examiners from one area to another, but we do find opportunities to balance technologies where we can. We're also taking efforts to improve retention, to make sure that that stable staffing level remains stable and that we continue to populate it with high-quality examiners. We're also investing in AI-enhanced tools for examination. Some of those are directed to automation and making things more effective and efficient for examiners in working with the tools. Others are meant to help identify areas where examiners could benefit from initial decision-making, things like 101, 112, identifying potential issues, but always with human review. We're also looking to innovate output incentives. One example of that is the Pendency Balance Award, which is a program that we implemented to try and supplement some of the decreasing participation in SAA and gain share that we had seen over time. Importantly, and again, Valencia touched on this as well when she was referring to our priorities, is the criticality of our workforce. So despite any improvements that we make in process or tools, our workforce is still going to remain the central cog in our machine. They move everything forward. We need to make sure that we recognize the work that they're doing to drive these pendency improvements. In particular, SPEs, as we're increasing our output and making sure that we are meeting the capacity demands that we see in front of us, the SPEs have doubled the amount of direct quality review that they've been doing since mid-year. So we've seen an increase in output. Not only do we need to make sure that our priorities are established in a balanced way and that we're keeping an eye on quality, but we're also driving an increased volume. So there's more work going out, and so the SPEs have stepped up to meet that demand. The SPEs have also contributed by maintaining prosecution continuity, where examiners have recently attrited from the office. Our SPEs have stepped in and they've picked up those applications to make sure that there's no delay in examination and that things continue to move fluidly through our systems. Examiners and SPEs both are continuing the coaching and mentoring that's important to us to build our high-quality workforce, ensure that those new examiners or peers are all well-trained, coached, mentored, and help make this as an engaging a career as it possibly can be. Examiners and SPEs are also contributing directly to increasing our output through participating in the Pendency Balance Award, which is, again, that incentive program that we built to try and replace some of the lost participation in gain share and SAA. We're also ensuring everybody collectively that those non-examination activities that we introduce into our process or that we introduce into the work week are strategically valuable and that they're effective to support the quality of the work product that we're putting out the door. We want to make sure that we understand that it's not just our SPEs and our examiners that are chipping in to drive this capacity gain. The division areas are also stepping in wherever they can to help make sure that the TCs have the support that they need to enable the SPEs and examiners to remain as focused as possible on quality of examination. So we have folks from other division areas that are assisting in mentoring and training examiners. They're supporting our SIG review processes. They're providing interview support and oversight. Some areas are directly providing examination support, such as PCT Chapter 2. And where examination support isn't necessarily possible, administrative task support is. And so we have folks from all over the office that are helping support the TCs and enable them to stay all eyes on efficiency and quality of examination. And again, to touch on it one more time, is that we also have folks across the office who are working on developing new and improved IT tools. Not just the developers, but the examiners who are helping to support the tool build and the user interface design and things of that sort. So now we're going to talk a bit about our 10, 30, 90-day initiatives. So what you'll see is that we have a set of initiatives that we planned and put in place, and they were intended to be implemented 10, 30, and 90 days after the confirmation of Secretary Lutnick on February 18th. So these were meant to address some of the concern we had about those underlying factors that were reducing our output, but also explore innovative approaches to increase our examination capacity. So on the next slide, you'll have a view as to how we're monitoring and planning the progress on those. So on the left-hand side, and I recognize this is small, but I believe the slides will be shared, so you'll be able to see some of them. But on the left-hand side, you'll see these are categorized as those 10, 30, or 90-day initiatives, and each one is directed towards one of the purposes that I mentioned previously. So in some instances, we are prioritizing details, meaning that's where we're identifying those that are mission critical, those that are essential. You can see on the right, those bars represent the projected gains in terms of production output, as well as the achieved gains from production output. So you can see for the most part, those bars are almost full. And so we've been highly effective in initiatives that we've planned. As you go down that list, and I'm having trouble reading it even from the distance that I'm at, but each one corresponds to one of those underlying factors and one of the focus areas that we've established to improve our output capacity going into the second half of this year. So the next slide is sort of the culmination of the efforts that we've seen. And this is a bit of a complicated slide, but it tells a good story, so I'm going to sort of spend a bit of time on this one. So you have a comparison here of fiscal year 24 as compared to fiscal year 25. And on the left-hand side, divided at that January vertical line, that is pay periods 1 through 9 of last year as compared to this year. And what you're seeing represented is the cumulative capacity over that period. So in the lighter color, the lighter shade is fiscal year 24. Now we have our legend swapped there. So on the left-hand side, this is intended to show is that up until pay period 9, we were actually at a fairly low cumulative capacity value. We were actually outputting at almost only at about 70% of our need. And then relative to the previous year, we were actually performing worse up until that point. Now, when we implemented the initiatives that we were, I'm sorry about this, the legend is reversed on the years. So unfortunately, this is showing the reverse, but the fiscal year 25 values are actually the darker blue, and the fiscal year 24 values are that lighter shade. So what this is intended to show is that leading up to pay period 9 of the fiscal year, we were actually at a fairly low value in terms of our output capacity. We implemented a number of those initiatives, and they've come online iteratively over time, and we've improved our capacity up until right now. We're running at 110%. What's important to note here is that we actually were able to take what was headed towards a continued increase in the inventory and reverse that trend, not only to get back to, say, the previous year's levels, but beyond. So we went from a 69% cumulative capacity and reversed that relative to the previous year and brought ourselves all the way up to 98% in that very first pay period 10 in the second half of the year, or the second portion of the year, rather. And then as we continued to recover and implement more and more of those 10, 30, 90-day initiatives, you can see that our capacity only continued to climb. And we're now riding through the end of the year at about 110% capacity. So this is really representative of when we brought all of our efforts to bear and we recruited all the help that we knew was available in other division areas, and the SPs kicked in as much extra effort as they have to keep up with the increased volume, and the examiners kept on doing their job and increased their focus. We were able to significantly change the trend that we expected to see in the inventory. So this is the capacity view. This shows what we were able to accomplish once that legend is reversed, what we were able to accomplish by implementing these initiatives and putting all of our boots to the ground and getting moving. And this is the capacity view. And on the next slide, what you'll see is the effect that had on our inventory. So this is that tail end of the inventory graph that we saw originally, where we had seen a decrease from FY20 all the way through the beginning portion of this fiscal year. And this zooms in on what we were able to achieve in January. So the inventory up until this point was continuing to climb. At January, it reached a peak of about 838,000, just shy of that. And the way that the capacity of our workforce and our output was situated, it was at that point poised to continue to climb. So if things continued on pace, we would have seen that inventory continue to grow. We implemented these initiatives, we turned that tide, and now what we're seeing is that we're on a downward trend to the point where we've reduced the inventory by upwards of 38,000 unexamined applications since January of this year. So that tells the story of how we got to the point in the inventory, some of the underlying factors, and some of the initiatives that we put in place to address the issue in the moment. And now I believe Valencia is going to take over and tell us a little bit about how we're going to go from where we are now, where we've brought ourselves in this short period, and how we're going to plan for the future.
All right, thanks, Greg. So, of course, we are very focused on the here and now and what's going on currently. But in order to be responsible about what we're doing, we have to look at our long-term goals as well, not just today, but what's going to set us up for the future. So some of those goals will be for our first action pendency to reduce it to 12 months, for total pendency to reduce it to 24 months, and to also look to reduce our unexamined inventory to below 599,000. And you saw some of the numbers from Greg of where we are now. So these are very challenging goals for us, but nothing that we will not be able to overcome. Now, in order to overcome these long-term goals, because we are looking at the future, we have to set milestones for ourselves along the way. In order to get to this path of success, we have to measure things that are getting us there and the progress we're making. Our first milestone is the 800,000 by the end of 2025 of our unexamined inventory, and where we were starting in January at 837,000. We will continue to set these milestones towards an inventory reduction in FY 2026, 27, 28, and beyond. Another milestone set this fiscal year was to maintain first office action output greater than the new serialized application filings coming in. Greg talked to you about that, about capacity, and making sure that what we're doing and the great quality office actions that we're putting out exceed the filings as they're coming in. So right now you saw that we are about 110% capacity, far exceeding where we were this time last year. Now, total, what that means is currently over the entire fiscal year, we're at 94.7%. As Greg showed you, we were in the high 60s when we took on these new initiatives and actions, and we've grown and we've been smart about how we're using our time. So for this full fiscal year, we're at 94.7%, which is a huge increase and success for us. And measured by last year, this time, 71.1% capacity. So as I mentioned, managing our capacity is critical to our success. There are many levers that are within patent's control that will impact our capacity as well as our workforce. In planning for fiscal year 26 and beyond, we have included strategically adjusting those levers as we account for the events that impact our capacity. Now, examples of that would be if we have filings that have grown and have gone up, those levers that we would pull would be the ones that would reduce the lower priority activities that we're participating in. Conversely, if our filings are down, we will strategically invest in valuable activities that increase our examination output. Now, despite this pendency focus, as I mentioned to you earlier, we have multiple focuses, including value and durability. We will continue to maintain our quality as we have in the past, present, and we will in the future. And in fact, as we've been making these really great impacts and progressions on pendency, we have also made impact on quality. So far this fiscal year, we have outpaced our compliance goals that we set for ourselves. It is imperative to ensure we have a balanced approach to pendency improvements compliance, and durability product. We will never sacrifice one for the other. I can also let you know about some of our planning and execution. Well, actually, I think I just went through some of it, but to go a little further on that. So for this year, some of the things that we're planning as we're being responsible about our activities, maintaining or increasing pendency by, and also maintaining or enhancing our quality, compliance, value, and durability. We're going to be looking at some of the things that we need to do, non-examining activities that will, as Greg said, enhance what we're doing and meeting our goals. Those being training, both internal and external, training for our employees and training for those who use our system on the outside. Also, looking at our examiner hiring. While we have hired this year, we are expecting to hire even more and be able to train and develop those employees as responsible employees that will have quality products. We're also going to look at our non-production time. So we will use our time and our employees' time wisely, as well as looking at our career details and having opportunities for career details, but doing it in a prioritized way, as well as looking at the IT-related activities, as well as our AI, and how are we making a better product and supporting our employees with the appropriate resources with AI, and also engagement events. As I mentioned before, our patent employees are critical to the success that we have here. So we are going to do the things that are necessary to make sure that they are receiving substantive training, that they are getting the opportunities that they need in order to come together, work together, have a networking process, understand how to work together, and develop a better product for all of us in the same time in a comfortable community setting. Next, this is a little bit of the future of what we're going to do. This is an animated portion of our webpage that will be coming soon that's going to give a snapshot look, not only internally, but externally at where we are between filings coming in and the work that we are doing, so that people will know anytime that they like to get information from us of where we are and what we're doing. Now, part of that will also be sending out communication externally and internally, so our employees and our stakeholders know where we are, what we're doing, the effects it's having, but also giving them an opportunity to share their ideas and their concerns or comments with us as well. Part of that is management roadshows to make sure that our managers have all of the update information that they need to share with their employees and to help guide their employees, as well as having on-campus sessions, as I mentioned, where our employees can come together, communicate, and have a better opportunity to come together and catch up with each other. It's a big part of working together and having a strong workforce and support system. So if we can go on, I can then share with you that all of our efforts have come together not only to have high quality, but as you can see on the screen, that we've made a huge dent. We are working our way out of this unexamined inventory. I'm also happy to say that in the time that it took us to put this presentation together, and today, we're actually below 794,000 unexamined inventory. So that means our employees are working very smart and very hard to make sure that our community and our applicants are receiving the office actions, the decisions that they deserve, and the patent grants that they deserve. So from there, I will then go on to giving it back to Sean.
Thank you so much. Well, let me first say thank you to both Valencia and Greg for taking time out of their busy schedules to join us today. We have now gotten to our live Q&A portion of today's program. Questions were taken in advance, and if you have questions currently, you can submit them to USPTO Hour at uspto.gov. So with that, Let me get started and see what we have here for today. The Pendency Balance Award pilot. Can you guys speak to what that is, what it entails, how it works, etc.?
Greg, yeah.
Sure. Okay, so the Pendency Balance Award, so I mentioned during the presentation that we had started to see declining participation in the SAA and the Gain Share Awards, which are two of our, they've been around for quite some time. They are production-based awards that are based on the examiner's production achievement. Participation had been declining, and so we were looking for some new ways to incentivize production, and the Pendency Balance Award is what we came up with. So the Pendency Balance Award is designed such that examiners can opt in to technology areas that have a backlog. So that's an important aspect of it, is that the increased output is actually directed at high pendency areas, so areas that are currently under capacity. We identify those technologies that are nearest to the examiner's main docket, and they are able to opt in and work additional cases from that area that then accrue towards an award tally. So for each case that they work, they earn a certain amount of compensation, and that is capped by the federal salary caps and the aggregate compensation limits, but it enables us to tap into an additional source of output. But not only the additional output is directed output that is focused on our highest pendency areas. So what we had initially projected for participation, and this was on that dashboard, one of those elements on that was actually the Pendency Balance Award, was that we would see about 6,000 additional production units out of the program. But as it turned out, we had underestimated how appealing it would be to not only our examiners, but also to SPEs. So we have seen almost double the output that we had expected from that. We were very happy because we were able to offer the opportunity not only to examiners, but to supervisors, as well as to others across the office who have full signatory authority. And we're also we were able to offer them that opportunity. We're also able to ensure quality by getting support from OPQA and having a sampled review conducted on those to make sure that we are not, that we're maintaining the balance. So that's part of where we say the Pendency Balance Award is. It's meant to balance pendency from one technology to another, but it's really representative of trying to achieve a balance between both pendency, quality, and ensuring that when we are allocating our incentive dollars, we're doing so in a thoughtful way and towards the areas where it's going to have the most impact. So that's sort of the short summary of the Pendency Balance Award. We've been very happy, in particular, I think, and I don't know if we're in the wide view as I look at Valencia, but one of the things that Valencia was sure that we incorporated was the opportunity for others within the office to be able to participate to whatever extent they could and were willing to. So the breadth of that opportunity has been exciting, and the effectiveness of it has been, I think, unexpected.
Okay. Thank you for that, Greg. Let's see here. What else do we have? It looks like first action pendency is getting worse. That seems somewhat contrary to improvement. Maybe you guys can clarify a little bit on that.
Sure. That's a good observation, and it is true. First action pendency recently, it has been climbing. The reason for that is because of actually some of what I just spoke to, that we are not just focused on increasing output, and that first action pendency number is an average as reported. So we wanted to make sure that as we were increasing our output, we were doing so in a way that was actually addressing the oldest applications in our inventory. So we haven't achieved a global increase in output across the lower pendency areas and the higher pendency areas. That output increase has been primarily focused on our oldest pendency, our highest pendency areas. So as we are focusing our output capacity on those portions of the inventory, we are outputting older actions in a larger portion, and that's tending to shift that average. So as much as it looks like the metric is headed in the wrong direction, it's directly connected to some of the efforts we're making, which are intended to focus our output, not just increase our output.
Okay. Thank you for that. Let's see here. Are there any efforts upcoming to increasing examiner retention that you can speak to?
So I can talk a little bit about that.
Sure.
Yes, as I mentioned, employee engagement is huge for us, making sure that our employees are receiving what they need, not only to do the job, but to be comfortable and enjoy their time here at the USPTO. So we are looking now at how we're going to incentivize our employees. We are hiring, and we're hiring hopefully quite a few brand new patent examiners. But we rely very heavily as well on our senior examiners. Could be anywhere from a GS7 all the way up to a GS14 primary examiner. All contribute in a huge way. And we want to make sure that we're not only keeping them comfortable and committed to their position here, but we're keeping them here. So yeah, we will be looking at, myself and the deputy commissioners are working with our undersecretary and our deputy undersecretary to see what we can do to incentivize and make sure that our employees are getting exactly what they need and want to stay here, because this is where we want them, part of our community.
Yeah, thank you for that. Let's see. There was mention of AI. Are any of the new AI assisted search tools that will be used by examiners, are those going to be made available to the public?
That's a great question. And yes, the short answer is yes. The longer answer is, as we are researching, developing, implementing AI tools, resources, and IT resources for our employees, we have to go through a rigorous testing process to make sure that they are the appropriate tools that are going to support, help get to the right decisions on cases and helping our employees to get to the right decisions and doing it in a timely way. So we have put a lot of effort, invested quite a bit in doing research, finding the right tools, making sure that they're calibrated correctly, and then giving them over to our employees to tell us what they think about them as well, how useful they are, and put them in place. We have tools such as our SIM search, similarity search, that has already been given to the entire patent core, that we get great feedback about the use of, that allows our examiners to better identify the appropriate prior art and exactly how it is useful in the inventions that it's used against. We have a design vision, which is an image AI search that our design examiners are using right now, all of them, that we're also looking at in our utility examiner space, how it could best be used by them and giving it to them as well. We also have more like this search that is available to all of our examiners, as well as we are looking at and going into the testing to make sure we have it calibrated correctly on 101 as well as 112. We're doing a lot of research on a lot of IT tools that will be the right resource for our examiners and our supervisors as they are diligently doing their work in examination.
Okay, so it sounds like the public will get to play with some of these cool new toys that we have here at some point in the future.
At some point, as we calibrate them correctly, we do have some search tools that are already available, and as we can calibrate them correctly and find them, we will absolutely be happy to share with our community. And also, if our community knows of any of these tools that you feel would be of benefit, please share and let us know.
Sounds good. So you guys can send those comment suggestions to the USPTO Hour Box, and also stay tuned for those AI tools to be available. Let's see, what else do we have here? There was a mention in decreased overtime usage. Any explanation for that?
Oh, sure. Yeah, so there's a number of factors that contribute to that. Some are more straightforward than others. One is the gradual increase in grade level among our examiners. So our examiners are, the core is mature. Right? We have a lot of folks that have either reached or are approaching the federal salary cap. And as they move up in grade, there's less room for them to actually claim overtime. So there's just sort of a scarcity. There's less available for them to claim between their salary and the federal limits. So that's one. Another reason is we had the special pay rate adjustment. I forget exactly when that occurred, but sometime within the past couple of years. So that served to move everybody's baseline up and, again, narrowed that gap. So those are the two very straightforward ones. The other effect is a little bit harder to measure, would be that as people get paid more, there's just less financial pressure to work overtime. So there's a work-life balance where people are making choices. So that one is obviously more subjective than objective. We don't know the degree to which that plays in, but those would be the main drivers of that.
Understood. Thank you for that. There was a mention earlier in the presentation about divisions. Can either of you speak to what are you referring to by divisions?
Sure, be happy to. So division areas, as the patents business unit is divided out into different subject matter expertise. So we have our patent core, and that houses all of our technology utility patent examiners, our design examiners. That is a division area of the patents business unit. That is the one that's most referred to. But there are other division areas within the patents business unit. As we're talking about AI and IT, we have a division that is diligently working at developing the appropriate tools, working with our Chief Information Officer division to make sure that we're developing the right tools. We have an area of international, a division area of international, where we work with the harmonization of IPOs around the world to make sure that our customer, our applicants, can rely on similar use of prior art, similar types of searches. So we have a division that works on that, as well as work product from around the world that we can also utilize. We have a finance and workforce management area as well within our patents business unit that works with the agency finance area and our human resources area to make sure that we are aligned, that we're communicating, and that we are doing the best by our employees. So those are the division areas that we were referring to earlier. Now, as Greg mentioned, in our division areas, quite a few of them, especially things like international or our training division area where we train our examiners as well as bringing on new examiners, we are privileged to have full signatory authorities, those are primary examiners, who have moved into these different areas that also are very highly qualified, experienced, full signatory authority examiners who can assist us as we are rallying around not only making sure that quality is enhanced, but that we're reducing inventory and pendency. So we have division areas that are focused on things that support the examining function, but also support in directly working with our examiners as well.
Okay, thank you for that. Let's see. It seems like first action pendency can be very different depending on what technology area or art unit your application lands in. Is anything being done to address that? And is there an explanation for why that might be the case?
Okay, so a lot there. There's so the difference in pendency between various art units is reflective of the pendency by the technology. So it's not a one-to-one relationship in any way, but the idea that based upon the art unit, there is some sense of technology. So you have groups that are dedicated to examining artificial intelligence applications, and you have others that are directed towards, like I was, examining touch panels and display devices. And so as filings increase in any one of the various technology areas that we have here at the office, our capacity fluctuates. So we have a certain number of examiners working on a particular technology that's balanced out against the number of filings that we're seeing at a point in time. But as filings may surge in a particular area, they may outpace our staff. And similarly, as filings decrease in an area, we may tend to be overstaffed. So those differences in filings as they relate to how many people we have working can lead to a delay. We try to minimize that. So that's sort of where the difference comes from in terms of what do we do. I think the question was, what are we doing to minimize that? Or?
Sure. How can you explain how to account for those differences?
Yeah. So one of the things that we do is look for we look by technology to see what our capacity levels are. A lot of what we went over today was in the aggregate, but we do gather insight into what's the pendency in by discipline or by technology block. And where we see imbalances, particularly if we see that one area is running significantly lower than another, but they have some sort of relationship, some sort of technological linkage, then we'll look for opportunities to cross-train examiners, help them learn how to bridge the gap from where they are to where we may need additional help, and then ultimately try and balance the capacity between those areas. So we'll make our workforce as flexible as we can, and we'll supplement that with additional training and support and balance out the pendency by balancing out the capacity within those technologies.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. This seems like sort of a follow-up to the AI question. What tools are being used by examiners to help with efficiency?
So I'll talk a little bit more. I think I might have probably addressed this a little bit, but our sim search, similarity search, is an area that is supporting our examiners in finding the right search, the prior art references, as well as for our design area, the design vision, more like this is another area. And we're exploring other areas that will be able to support examiners and supervisors in other aspects of the examination process. But I'm going to take this opportunity to also say a huge thank you, as I mentioned, our division areas and the full signatory authorities in each of those, that those resources have been there for our examiners and as well, and are still there supporting in review, in coaching, in training, in all that our employees need, our examiners need in order to move forward in examination.
All right. Thank you for that. Let's see. So we're getting short on time here. I have a few more questions for you. Is there an opportunity to potentially adjust time requirements associated with the docket management system to increase throughput?
I can start with there's always a way of being more efficient. So we don't stop at any one area. Yes, we are looking at docket management to see what would be fair to our employees and still make us more efficient as we're moving forward with the examination of cases. But we're looking at all aspects of the examination process to see how we can simplify, streamline, make it fair, make it something that is direct, that everyone can follow and understand.
Okay, thank you for that. There was mention a few times of production units. What is a production unit exactly?
Oh, yeah. So that's one of the areas where we sort of drift into internal patent speak. That's a term that when we use it, it's pretty straightforward. But a production unit is it's a measure of filings. So the entire work that is required of an application to get it from filing to disposal. So the entire course of examination, there's a workload that's associated with that, and a production unit is meant to reflect that. So when we talk about production units, we're talking about the amount of work it takes to fully prosecute an application or fully examine an application.
Okay. Are there any tools used to assess when applications essentially get stuck? Some seem to be languishing in certain areas, depending on the art unit or the technology, and that obviously would impact pendency to a certain extent. Are there any, I guess, maybe auditing tools, maybe a good way to put it, or just monitoring tools to assess those areas where things may be getting stuck?
Sure. Yeah, so I'll say there's a number of ways to sort of take that question. One way that an application can get stuck is because we don't have sufficient capacity to examine it yet, and it's waiting in line, and so it's sitting in our inventory awaiting its turn, and we certainly are monitoring for that. We monitor the pendency by area, as I mentioned, so that's one way that something could get stuck. But in terms of applications that seem to have slipped through a crack or something like that, we do have tools where we review transactional data to see, is there something that has stayed in a particular status for an outsized amount of time, and where that occurs, we look basically for outliers, and then where we find them, we investigate, because the causes can be different, right? So there's various causes. So it's more of an outlier review and then send somebody to sort of investigate.
So I'm going to add on to that a little bit. I'm going to toot your horn a little bit here, Sean, in the division that that you oversee, that has the Pro Se Assistance Center, that has the Patents Ombudsman area, that's there to help if there is a case where you have an application where you don't see much movement and you're not sure what's going on and you're unable to get in touch with someone from the TC, that your employees are there also to help make sure that we break through whatever is stopping progress on an application. And certainly, if you need more information about those assistance areas as well, please send that also to our mailbox and let us know. And I know Sean is going to be happy to help to alleviate that.
Absolutely. It looks like I'm down to about 30 seconds here, so I want to take the time to say thank you again. Huge thank you to Greg and Valencia for taking time out of their busy schedules to join us today. I want to thank all of you for joining us today. For those of you who submitted questions asking about the recording or the slides, those things will be made available to you on the event page for this event in the coming weeks here. So keep an eye out for those. Also, as a follow-up to this program, you will receive a post-event survey to the email address that you registered for today's program for. We would greatly appreciate if you take the time to fill out that survey. I know a lot of people say we want your feedback, but we really want your feedback, good, bad, or otherwise. We use it to continue to improve programs like these and others that we have available to the public. So with that, I see my time is absolutely up at this point. So I want to thank you all again for joining us and hope you have a great rest of the day and week, and we'll see you sometime soon.